So the next thing this evening is I've had this dream for a little bit and I was inspired by Pastora Jennifer. Actually, she was posting about joy and celebration, and I thought, what if we didn't have a worship band this evening? What if we had a mariachi? Hey! And yes, and listen, y'all don't know how sassy Pastora Jennifer is. Like, what better way to welcome her than with a mariachi paving the way, okay? That is the only way that she'll be able to be fully welcome. But this is what I want you to think about. So I'm from Nicaragua, and mariachi is not originally from Nicaragua, but the history of mariachi, the love of mariachi, the moments and the memories connected to mariachi have gone to a lot of countries. And so what I want you to think about as they come up in a little bit, I want you to think about moments and memories and movement. So Pastora Jennifer is going to be preaching, and we're in a sermon series called Move by the Spirit. And the Spirit is liberating us, and we are reclaiming our bodies, we're reclaiming our theologies, we are reimagining how to move forward from where we have been. And God is always inviting us to enter into our stories and also reimagine a way forward. And so as they come forward, I hope that you feel surrounded by movement. I hope that we lean into the spiritual practice of joy, because we do a lot of justice work, and we need joy in justice. And we have to fight for joy. And joy should pave the way. So even as they come in, I hope that you hear the spiritual practice of joy as we're moving forward, as the priests and priestesses went ahead, before opening up the way for difficult situations. And so mariachis come with memory. I have memories of birthdays. I have memories of quinceañeras. I have a memory of an ex-boyfriend that brought a mariachi. But listen, I have Rob now, so no memory attached there. Hey. So I have memories of mariachis at funerals and weddings. It's about community. It's not just about the music. And so I hope that the music will move you, and that today we create a holy memory. We create movement. And if you feel led to get up and dance, please do so. If you need to grab the person next to you, maybe you didn't come with them, I don't know, and dance, please do so. And so, hermanos, pasen adelante.
Un sigo siendo el rey. Una piedra en el camino del Señor Jesucristo. Después me di una rienda, pero hay que llegar primero. Pero hay que saber con dinero y sin dinero. Hago siempre lo que quiero y mi palabra es ley. No tengo trono ni reina y nadie quien me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. Thank you, gracias.
¿Quieres una más?
César.
Sinaloa, Sinaloa.
Bienvenidos to the church we hope for. And I love that spontaneity. We were not planning on dancing, but isn't that what the Spirit does? The Spirit surprises us with joy. So thank you for welcoming all of that, and I hope that you feel the joy in this room. Gracias, Jennifer. So this is how we're going to welcome Pastora Jennifer, okay, to the pulpit. And let me tell you a little bit about Pastora Jennifer. No pressure at all, but we already know that you are amazing. She has been here before, but for those of you who maybe were not here that day that I talked a little bit about her, Pastora Jennifer, I met her when I was a student at Fuller, and she is originally from Guatemala. Yay! Originally from Guatemala, she grew up in Southern California, and she's the daughter of church planters. And so today I just want to honor your ancestors as well. And all of those, yes, all of those who came before you, because you are who you are because of all of this and all of them as well. Jennifer, just a little bit about herself. She has pastored bilingual and intergenerational and intercultural ministries. She got her MD from Fuller, and she's right now pursuing a PhD in higher ed from APU, just down the street. And I love that she says this about her passions. Her passions include borderland conversations, intercultural youth spiritual formation, bilingual ministries, and theological education for the Latina community. She started a podcast, if y'all like podcasts, a fantastic podcast called Café with Comadres. And she's also the co-founder of Kinship Commons. More than anything though, Pastora Jennifer is our friend, and she has prayed for this church. She heard about the vision for this church before we even knew what we were doing, Pastor Bobby and I. She has been a friend and a colleague and an encourager and a midwife of this church. And we're so thankful to welcome her into this pulpit today.
I already lost my voice, you know.
You're dancing.
Mamá por Dios. Oh, she said she had a musical surprise. Whew. Wow, I feel like we need a collective breath. Do you want to take a couple breaths with me? Whew. Take deep inhales. Hold it, and exhale real deep. Take another breath, inhale. Hold it, exhale. That was a walk down memory lane for sure. Particularly that first song. If you don't know what the lyrics say in Spanish, the thesis of Cielito Lindo is that the resistance of crying and laughing at the same time. It's not part of the sermon, but when I was singing that song, the scripture that came up with me was when the women leave that empty tomb, and scripture says they were filled with joy and fear, and yet they proclaimed the good news of the risen Christ. And I was like, de la sierra, I'm sure that's what they sang, you know? Woo! Because you could cry. If you're not crying and laughing at the same time, you're probably not in the movement of the Spirit. Buenos días, bueno, no son buenos días, oh my word. Buenas tardes, I am here, but I am accompanied by my partner Steven and my comadre Liliana. They both did the trip with me from San Diego, and that is a true act of love to drive and accompany a nervous preacher on a Sunday morning. Así que gracias. First and foremost to those who come with me, to those who have come before me. Y para mí, el espacio de compartir la palabra siempre es de mucho gozo y de mucho privilegio. El poder unirnos como comunidad de Jesús para acercarnos a esta palabra, buscando en la palabra que nos nutra, nos alienta y que nos llame a vivir una vida marcada por la misericordia y el amor de Dios. For me, it is always a joy, deep, deep honor to gather with fellow sojourners around the Word, hoping that the Word may nourish us, encourage us, sustain us, and challenge us to live lives marked by the mercy and love of God. Esta mañana, como ya dijo la pastora Inés, es un espacio muy especial porque es un honor unirme al ministerio de la pastora y comadre Inés y Bobby y sus familias. Y me siento en casa porque para un inmigrante como yo, mi sentido de hogar nunca ha sido arraigado a un código postal, porque Dios me trae en movimiento desde que nací. Pero mi sentido de hogar está basado en amistades, en personas en las cuales yo puedo ser yo misma. Y por eso me siento en casa, porque aquí puedo ser quien Dios me llamó a ser, y por lo cual es un hogar para mí y para todos ustedes en este lugar. So for me this morning, it's quite special because it's an honor always to join in different pastoral ministry teams. and to join in Comadre Inez, Bobby, and their families who are in this work of love together. And I feel at home, not because it's a zip code I was born and raised in, but because for immigrants like me, my sense of home is not confined by a zip code. It's rooted in friendships where I can be my full self. And I know this is a place I could be my full, sassy, dancing, mariachi shouting self. And that's why this is home for me and also for you. Esta invitación tal vez no va a ser extraña para esta comunidad, pero igual se las extiendo. Les invito a practicar conmigo una hospitalidad lingüística, porque como pueden ver, al igual que nuestras escrituras, Jesús mismo y esta región, pues soy muy bilingüe. This morning I invite you into something that this community is no stranger to, and yet you have to constantly opt into it. I once again invite you to practice the linguistic hospitality with me. As you can tell, like the scriptures, Jesus himself in this region, I am very bilingual. So, if you're bilingual with me, as in English and Spanish, because there are other kinds of bilinguality, we're gonna have some fun. The fun is gonna continue. You're gonna catch all the different word choices. You're gonna catch the nuances. But you're also gonna hear things twice. And that, depending on your day, might stretch your patience this morning. So I invite you to hear it twice. Let the repetition, let things sink in a little bit deeper. Let the repetition be the tool that the Spirit of God uses to highlight something you might need on your walk this week. If you're a monolingual sibling, you're gonna have to wait. And you, depending on what the kind of day you had, you will be stretched in your patience this morning as well. You're not gonna get all the nuances. Maybe not all at once. Your mind is gonna wander. And you may wish you would have tuned in online instead so you can fast forward some parts. So when that comes up, not if, but when, let your waiting, the spaces in between, take you to deep breaths. Become centered and aware of where you're at. And may the waiting for you be a tool that the Spirit also uses to highlight something that you may need this week. Yo crecí en la iglesia latina inmigrante aquí en el sur de California, en la cual los viernes no eran noche de partidos, ni tampoco noches de cine, eran noches de vigilia, okay? I grew up in the Latina immigrant church where Friday nights, they weren't for varsity football games or movie nights. They were vigilia nights. For those who may not be familiar with such practice, let me break it down for you. It's a prayer and worship lock-in at the church. That's really what it is. They typically start at 7 p.m. with a dinner. Everyone comes tired from a long work week. Then you go into the sanctuary and you interweave between worshiping through prayer, songs, storytelling, short sermons, small group sessions. You wrap around the gathering around 2 a.m., but if you were like really legit and did a full vigilia, then you go until 5 a.m. and you end with breakfast. Those were my Friday nights. A través de estas reuniones, aprendí que si pones dos himnarios rojos específicamente, son la altura perfecta para una almohada. Aprendí que el momento perfecto para desaparecerme debajo de la banca era durante las oraciones en el altar, porque mientras todos estaban ministrando y enfocados en eso, yo podía dormir sin que nadie me encontrara. Y es por eso creo que hasta el día de hoy yo puedo tomarme una siesta en donde esté, con que tenga una almohada y un chaqueta en mis piernas, I knock out. So through this practice I learned that 2 red hymnals, red in particular, are the perfect height for a pillow. I always wear a jacket to these events because I could use it as a blanket for my legs. And the perfect time to disappear for a nap under the pews was during the prayers at the altar, because people were so into the prayer that they would not be looking for where Jennifer was at. So I could take a little nap, and they typically lasted about 30 minutes. So it's a perfect power nap in the middle of the vigilia. So this is why I think until now, I can sleep through anything. I've slept through earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it. Because when you have mariachi-led worship every Friday night, you learn how to nap through a little bit of noise. So, I took my most epic naps at those vigilias. But it was while I sang and while I slept that I was storied by my community. It was at the gathering we had longer times of worship where we were able to hear stories that could go into more detail of what was going on in the lives of our community. Orábamos, and we prayed. Orábamos para que Dios cerrara los ojos de los agentes de la patrulla fronteriza para que el familiar de alguien pudiera llegar a casa sano y salvo. We would pray that God would shut the eyes, literally our prayers, shut the eyes, Lord, of Border Patrol agents so that someone's family member would make it home safely. Orábamos para que los casos de inmigración en nuestra congregación un día tuvieran su día en corte. We would pray for immigration cases to see the light of day in our community. Orábamos para que las familias que vivían juntas podrían tener una vivienda más amplia para poder criar a sus hijas y a sus hijos. We would pray that housing would open up for family members and families who needed more space to raise their family. We would pray for provisions. I had people lay hands on my car many times so that it would start again. Miracles come through. I've always driven old cars. For funds to come in to pay rent when families didn't have enough to make the means end. Orábamos para que los supervisores de los restaurantes locales o las gasolineras no delataran a sus colegas indocumentados, a los gerentes de la compañía. We would pray for the managers of the local restaurants and the gas stations to not out their undocumented colleagues to upper management. Orábamos por los embarazos, que los embarazos sean saludables para las mujeres sin acceso a atención médica en este país. We would pray for healthy pregnancies for women with no access to health care in this country. And so on Fridays we had vigilias, and we stayed up, and we cried, and we sang mariachi songs, cumbia songs, salsa, drum-led worship. Y vimos milagros. Vimos milagros. La gente logró llegar a casa después de sobrevivir la crueldad del desierto. Con la ayuda de esos remedios caseros, las madres y los bebés fueron atendidos. Celebramos cada tarjeta de residencia, cada aceptación universitaria y cada beca otorgada. And we witnessed miracles. People made it home. I don't know if you know what that means, but people made it home. People made it home. There's a rush of stories that's coming back. People made it home. And through all sorts of communal sharing, rents were always covered, y'all. With the help of homeopathic remedies, moms and babies were tended. So many soup recipes, I could tell you all about it. We celebrated every green card, every college acceptance, every scholarship. For every dehumanizing policy, anti-immigrant narrative, and sinful move from our surrounding community, there was a vigilia. A gathering in which the Spirit of God would meet us and heal us and rehumanize us and remember us. We were put back together. For every act of evil, there was a vigilia. And we saw miracles take place. And so we go to the book of Acts this morning, chapter 12. And I want to read to you, bless, yes. You're going to see the words in English, and I'm going to read them out loud in Spanish. And so follow your eyes or attune to your ears, and let's go to Acts chapter 12, and we will read from verses 1 through 18. Verse 1. En ese tiempo, el rey Herodes hizo arrestar a algunos de la iglesia con el fin de maltratarlos. Verse 2. A Jacobo, hermano de Juan, lo mandó a matar a espada. Verse 3. Al ver que esto agradaba a los judíos, procedió a prender también a Pedro Esto sucedió durante la fiesta de los panes sin levadura. Verse 4. Después de arrestarlo, lo metió en la cárcel y lo puso bajo la vigilancia de 4 grupos de 4 soldados cada uno. Tenía la intención de hacerlo comparecerse en juicio público después de la Pascua. Verse 5. Pero mientras tenían a Pedro en la cárcel, la iglesia oraba constantemente y fervientemente a Dios por él. The church was keeping vigil. Verse 6. La misma noche en que Herodes estaba a punto de sacar a Pedro para someterlo a juicio, este dormía entre 2 soldados, sujeto con 2 cadenas. Unos guardias vigilaban la entrada de la cárcel. Verse 7. De repente apareció un ángel del Señor con unas palmadas en el costado y le dijo: «Date prisa, levántate». Las cadenas cayeron en las manos de Pedro. Verse 8. Le dijo además el ángel: «Vístete y cálzate con tus sandalias». Así lo hizo, y el ángel añadió: «Échate la capa encima y sígueme». Verse 9. Pedro salió tras del ángel, pero no sabía si realmente estaba sucediendo lo que el ángel hacía, porque le parecía que se trataba de una visión. Verse 10. Pasaron por la primera y la segunda guardia y llegaron al portón de hierro que daba a la ciudad. El portón se les abrió por sí solo y salieron. Caminaron unas cuadras y de repente el ángel lo dejó solo. Verse 11. Entonces Pedro volvió en sí y se dijo: «Ahora estoy completamente seguro de que el Señor ha enviado a su ángel para librarme del poder de Herodes y de todo lo que el pueblo judío esperaba». Verse 12. Cuando cayó en cuenta de esto, fue a casa de María, la madre de Juan, apodado Marcos, donde muchas personas estaban reunidas orando. The vigil was happening. Verse 13. Llamó a la puerta de la calle y salió a responderle una sierva llamada Rode. Verse 14. Al reconocer la voz de Pedro, se puso tan contenta que volvió corriendo sin abrir. «¡Pedro está en la puerta!», exclamó. Versículo 15. «Estás loca», le dijeron. Ella insistía en que así era, pero los otros decían: «Debe ser su ángel». Verse 16. Entre tanto, Pedro seguía llamando. Cuando abrieron la puerta y le vieron, quedaron pasmados. Verse 17. Con la mano, Pedro les hizo señas de que se callaran y les contó cómo el Señor lo había sacado de la cárcel. «Cuéntenles eso a Jacobo y a los hermanos», les dijo. Luego salió y se fue a otro lugar. Verse 18. Al amanecer se produjo un gran alboroto entre los soldados respecto al paradero de Pedro. 19. Herodes hizo averiguaciones, pero no lo encontraron. Les tomó la declaración a los guardias y mandó a matarlos. Después viajó a Judea de Cesarea y se pudo allí. So verse 19 in English says, after Herod had a thorough search made for him and did not find him, he cross-examined the guards and ordered that they be executed. La lectura de hoy nos lleva a otro acto de maldad, que es el encarcelamiento. Today's scripture reading brings us to another act of evil, incarceration. The anxious power of the time in the position of power was called Herod. And King Herod is a prototype. It's a job title. It's a nickname that was given to people in power. Many of us, when we hear Herod, we think of the great Herod in Matthew chapter 2. It's the one who put the Holy Family in danger. Or perhaps we think of that guy's son, who is the one who arrested and killed John the Baptist. Or maybe we're thinking of the Herod that collaborated with Pilate for the arrest and assassination of Jesus. They're all related. This Herod in today's story's reading is called Herod Agrippa, who is the grandson of Herod the Great. Los Herodes eran aquellos en posiciones políticas romanas y sus acciones pueden sentirse como un déjà vu. Es porque el mal siempre es tan predecible. Es tan predecible que los escritores bíblicos solo le llaman por el título, no le ponen el nombre del individuo. No se especifica el nombre, porque los Herodes se parecen a los faraones y los faraones se parecen a lo que vemos hoy en día. Herods were Roman politicians, and if their actions kind of sound like déjà vu, that's because evil is so predictable. It's like uses the same formula, it's so boring, it does the same thing. So predictable that the authors of the biblical text do not tell the story of these individuals by their names, but just the title, the politician, the Herod. You know that guy. Because Herods are much like pharaohs, and pharaohs are much of what we see today. We know this story. We know these titles. These politicians and the systems they created were filled with anxiousness, power, control, top-down leadership strategies, and executed anyone who was considered a threat to their sense of power and control. And one of the systems they created to keep such leadership alive were prisons. William Jennings reminds us that prisons fuel the addiction of those in power to silence voices, to destroy bodies, and maintain hegemonies of all kinds. If we don't have the same political, social, sexual, economic, and religious realities, I will incarcerate you. I will kill you. I will make sure you're silenced. Incarceration is an attractive tool for the powerful to just keep the status quo. Incarceration practices, they're born out of slavery. Déjà vu, lo hemos visto. And the only escape is always intervention. So the Herod in this story, this Herod Agrippa, was a little different than the other ones. Because unlike Herods in the past, he ruled as a good Jew, which means he was in good praise with the religious authorities of his time. Entramos a esta historia sabiendo que Herodes ha ejecutado a Santiago. Y debido a esta ejecución, la popularidad de Herodes aumentó. Entonces lo quería hacer otra vez. Y Pedro era su siguiente víctima. And so we enter the story knowing that Herod has just executed James. And due to the execution, Herod's popularity rose up. And so guess what he wanted to do? Do it again. And Peter was then his next victim. When Peter gets arrested, no charge is specified. But does that even matter when you have been minoritized and dehumanized in the eyes of such system? It never does. Oh, but wait, Passover is around the corner, and this Herod is performing all of the religious practices. And so Peter's execution has to wait for another night. Irónicamente, Pedro pasará la fiesta de celebración de liberación del pueblo de Dios en cautiverio. So ironically, Peter will spend the feast of celebration of liberation from bondage in bondage under the leadership of someone who's performing all the religious activities of the people of God. So once Passover and the festival of unleavened bread has been celebrated, the angel of the Lord suddenly appears and cuts through the system that has been established. Siempre hay grandes niveles de vigilancia, pero gracias sean dadas a Dios que ningún gobernante ni ningún gobierno ha sido capaz de diseñar una prisión a prueba del Espíritu Santo. While government surveillance was high, no government or ruler has ever been able to design a border-crossing, spirit-proof prison. Praise be to God about that. I thank God for that, yes. So the Spirit breaks through, and the Spirit's intervention had 4 movements to it with Peter. First, the light shone in the darkness. Evil was exposed for what it was. Then Peter himself woke up and was like, is this happening? Is this a dream? Peter was a witness to his own liberation, but he was kind of like, is this happening, or is this just a vision? Is this what I've dreamt of, or is this really going to happen? And then the angel instructs him, get dressed. Put your shoes, put your shirt, get your coats. Peter witnessed his own dignity being reestablished. He was reclothed once again. And finally, there's a homecoming. Peter comes home to himself and is like, I made it out! And then where does he choose to go? He goes to community. De todos los lugares que pudo ir después de haber salido de la cárcel, Pedro elige ir a la iglesia en una casa de la pastora María. Y cuando Pedro toca la puerta y dice, ¡hey!, lo encuentra Rhoda, una esclava adolescente. Out of all the places to go after you just got put in jail, Peter chooses to go to a house church led by Pastora Maria. And when Peter is at the door, he's met by Rhoda, a teenage slave. Una adolescente que, como María, es la primera en encontrar la historia de liberación. Ella es la primera en el libro de Hechos en profetizar. Reconoció la voz de Pedro, ella conocía a su familia y corrió hacia las puertas para encontrarlo. A teenager, like Mary, who is the first to tell the story, the first in the book of Acts to prophesy. She recognizes the voice of familia. She knows what he sounds like and runs to the gates to greet him. Ella vio el milagro y corrió a predicar. Y los demás no recibieron su mensaje. Le hicieron burla, le trataron de decir que tal vez era otra cosa, porque ella no tenía la capacidad de entender eso. No le creyeron. She witnesses this incredible miracle and runs to preach and tell others, and she was received with harshness, gaslighting, and ridicule. Her good news were not received, pero nevertheless, predicó la mujer. And eventually, everybody saw the witness that she had seen in that miracle. Esta es una historia de paralelos. It's a story of parallels. Tenemos dos clases de cautivos. We got 2 kinds of captives here. Tanto los sistemas penitenciarios como los guardias, que eran los que participaban en este sistema, y atrapados en un ciclo de violencia que al terminar les acabó la vida. We got 2 kinds of captives here, both the prison system that keeps our brother there, but also the guards, who were the participants to uphold this system. And they're so caught up in this violence and this cycle that at the end it is their lives that get taken by being a part of this system. Pero también tenemos 2 clases de vigilias, but we also have 2 kinds of vigils. La vigilia de los guardias, de los que participan y están aportando a la opresión. We got the vigil of the guards, the ones that are participating and upholding this oppressive evil. Y la vigilia de los fieles, aquellos que comparten de la mesa, los que oran juntos, los que comparten sus testimonios, sus necesidades, sus dolores, los que toman pan y vino. And we have the vigilia of the faithful, the ones who gather to share meals, prayers, stories, celebrations, lament, and who ate of the unleavened bread and wine. And so these are the parallels we live with today. We continue to have people who perform the activities of the people of God while enacting evil. There will always be Herods. May we have eyes to see. We continue to see the ancient, boring, predictable systems of prisons. We continue to not believe and uphold the good news preached by minoritized young women. And the Spirit of God is actively working towards our liberation. And the Spirit of God is constantly forming communities that will welcome us home. And the Spirit of God continues to fill women, young women, and women of color in particular to preach the good news of Jesus. And there's more. The Spirit of God continues to surprise us as we move from being shackled to being set free and being fully restored to our full dignity. El Espíritu de Dios no ha terminado de romper cada cadena, yo lo creo. Y el Espíritu sigue cruzando cualquiera y todas las fronteras que le pongan. The Spirit of God is not done breaking every chain. I believe that. I hope that. Amen. Setting every captive free and crossing in any and all borders as much as we want to engineer them. The Spirit, pan comido, se los cruza. The Spirit of God continues to partner with voices, particularly of young women of color. And I say, may God help your unbelief. For our eyes, we have seen miracles. And so we will not contain to not proclaim them. And I pray you all believe us one day. But we've seen it, so we can't shut up about it. El Espíritu de Dios continuará exponiendo todo el pecado en nuestros sistemas. The Spirit will expose all the evils at work. Y el Espíritu de Dios nos guiará a casa, con nosotros mismos y con la familia de Dios. And the Spirit of God will continue to usher us home, to ourselves and to familia. ¿Qué clase de vigilias vamos a hacer? ¿Nos vamos a unir a la obra del Espíritu de Dios y lo que ella está haciendo? ¿O vamos a ser capellanes de sistemas de maldad y opresión? So what kind of vigils are we going to hold? Are we going to join in with the work of the Spirit and what she's up to? Or are we going to be really cute chaplains for systems of evil and oppression? Yo crecí en una iglesia inmigrante y los viernes eran de vigilia, noches de canto, de convivio y de testimonio. Por cada ley deshumanizadora que salía, estaba el canto en mariachi un día a la vez. Por cada narrativa anti-inmigrante había una mesa en la cual todos tenían un lugar. I grew up in the Latina immigrant church where Fridays, they were for vigilias. And for every dehumanizing policy, there would be a mariachi song of lament sung together. For every anti-immigrant narrative, there was an abundant table set up for all of us to join in. For every hateful move, there was a vigilia. And because evil is so predictable, love has to be innovative. It is, and it must be innovative. Así que seamos una comunidad que guarda vigilias, que crea en las buenas nuevas traídas por las mujeres, por nuestras y nuestros jóvenes, que extienda una mesa y que cante mariachis con resistencia. Amen. So may we be a community that keeps vigils, that believes in the good news brought by women, especially our young women and men. A community that extends the table and sings mariachis as resistance. Because incarceration doesn't get the last word. Incarnation does. And so, there is a table set before us. A special table. A table that rehumanizes us. A table that shames all the systems of incarceration. A table that remembers us. A table that reclothes us. A table that the community that keeps vigils for liberation enough to have the ears to hear when the witness of a miracle has happened. That is the table of the church. That ought to be our table. And so, God, my eyes have seen miracles. And I know that there are still a list of miracles that so many in this room crave, want, desire. And so today we lift a vigil. We lift songs of resistance. We cry out one more time. For there are sisters and brothers enslaved and shackled. Ourselves may be at that party group where we may not be behind physical prison doors, but my God, our jobs are oppressive. And we are in systems that don't see us, don't recognize our humanity. And we are ready to be surprised by your Spirit that brings light into darkness, that unshackles us, reclothes us, and brings us home to ourselves and to community. And on the night that you, oh God, were betrayed, your response was to gather for a meal. And you broke bread. You were with your comadres, your compadres, your familia. And as you were awaiting your miracle, you broke bread. And so as we await our miracle, we break bread as well. We sing as well. We cry as well. Because we have both seen miracles and are awaiting miracles. And what you've asked of us is that we keep the vigil going, that we keep gathering. And so today, church, you're invited to a table, an open table, in which we come as we are, and we eat of the bread and we drink of the wine, both grateful for the miracles that we have witnessed and full of hope and maybe some disappointment of the miracles that we have yet to see. But what we do as a familia is we eat, we sing, we share the stories, and we do it again. Because evil is so predictable. So we have to be innovative in the ways that we move in between these systems of oppression to bring life for all peoples. And so alongside my comadre, we will come, and you are invited to come and partake and participate in this table. This is how we resist. So the table is open. You may come, partake. And do y'all eat it together, or do people eat it at their own pace? I forgot that part. Beautiful. So we're going to eat together. So come and gather the elements, and then you will find your seats, and then we will all eat together. So come to the table of resistance.